Hi, I'm Stephanie Falls-Warr. Thank you for joining me. This is Empowering Entrepreneurs. I have a lot in store for you for the next coming weeks. Today, we're going to talk about emergency injury disaster loans. I'm going to go into how you can apply for those loans, where you would apply for those loans, and what can you use the loan funds for. Stay tuned. Again, this video is going to focus on we're going to focus on one specific SBA loan. But before we get into it, I want to start out with a quote. Faith is taking the first step, even though you can't see the staircase. So the loans that we're going to focus on is the SBA Emergency Injury Disaster Loans, the EIDL we'll call them. Who can apply for these loans? These loans are available to businesses, private nonprofit organizations, and sole proprietors. The type of loans, these loans are low interest working capital loans, which means you can pay things like payroll. It could cover things like utilities, rent, fixed debt, accounts payable, and other bills you may have occurred had this disaster not happened. Collateral requirements. If the loan that you request is over $25,000, collateral is required. Well, it may be required. If it's less than $25,000, there is no requirement for collateral. If you don't have collateral, that will not be a reason that your loan application is denied, according to the SBA. Now, if you decide you do want to apply for these loans, I want you to go to www.sba.gov. Click here where I have the red circle, coronavirus, small business loan information, learn more. You click on that. It'll bring you to this page. You want to scroll down to the bottom where you see content and click on economic injury disaster loan. That will take you to the next page, which is the first page of the application. And you want to start with eligible entity verification. You want to start with choosing one of these circles down here where it says choose one. Most of my clients will either choose applicant is a business with not more than 500 employees, or the applicant is an individual who operates under a sole proprietor with or without employees, or as an independent contractor. So you're going to either pick the first or the second circle. There are other circles depending on what type of business you have, but you would have to determine whether or not those are for you. This video is focused on small businesses and sole proprietors. So this is this is the bottom part of this page. So if you scroll down more, it says review and check all of the following. Now, this particular list, you will have to you will have to qualify to check all of these boxes, because if you don't check all of the boxes, you're not eligible to apply for this loan. Your entity wouldn't be eligible to apply for this loan if you can't check all of these boxes. You could read those on your own. The next section is business information. I created some fictitious information just to walk you through the application process. So you want to put your legal name, a trade name. A trade name is like a DBA. It's a doing business as. So if you do business under another name, a fictitious name, you can put that there as trade name. If you're a sole proprietor, the next section here or the next box, you want to enter your social security number. And if you have any other type of entity, you want to enter your EIN. You want to put the type of organization. There's a drop down where it asks for LLC, S Corp, C Corp. You would drop down, or sole proprietor, you would pick the type of entity. For this scenario, we picked LLC. You have to answer all of the questions that have an asterisk by it. One of these questions is the applicant a nonprofit organization? You're going to select no in this case of this particular scenario. Is the applicant a franchise? We're going to select no in the case of this scenario. It talks about gross revenues for the last 12 months prior to the disaster. They denoted the disaster date as January 31st, 2020. So 12 months prior to that would be basically calendar year 2019, they want that information, your gross revenues. So we scroll down the page, you want to put your gross revenues. You can get that information from your profit and loss statement for 2019 or your income tax return. Then they go on to ask you about the county zip code, phone number. They want an email address. They have another drop down as when did you start your business? You should be able to get that from your organizing documents. Then they asked about your business activities. Just select the one that's closest to your business. Related activity, again, what's closest to your business. And then you want to enter the number of employees. That's going to be an important one. So we go to the next page. Now this one, I almost missed this question here at the top. So you want to make sure you let them know whether or not your business is owned by another entity. So you want to say yes or no for that. And then the next section, they want to know information about the actual owner. And the important thing about this is they want your social security number. They want your name, first and last name, phone number, your title. And if this is a partnership, I said limited liability, they want to know what's your percentage of ownership. So if you kind of scroll down, they want your social security number, not the EIN here. In this case, they want the social security number, place of birth, date of birth, and they need to know whether or not you are a United States citizen, so US citizen. Then they have some more information. And if there's additional owners, you want to complete this, you want to click here and complete the same information for the other owners. Now this brings us to the additional information page. This is pretty straightforward. You will need to answer no for all of these. Again, only if it applies. Basically, they ask, have any criminal offenses or been convicted, or have you been debarred or suspended from working with government programs? And they also ask some more questions about criminality. So this is something that you would want to answer appropriately. Then we get down to this section here. They want to know whether or not someone assisted you with completing this application. Now we do these for our clients. So if we complete this for our client, we would put our information here. And we would need to say whether or not there's agreed upon fees, what we charge for that service, and whether or not you want to check whether or not you give SBA permission to talk to the person who actually completed it for you. If you decide you don't want to do that, you want to select no, and then they'll call you if they have any questions. If you're considering that advance, that's up to $10,000, this is under the CARES Act, you want to check here. So hopefully they'll look at you and see whether or not you're eligible for that advance. Now, this is a really important part, is you want to give where to send the funds. You want to tell them where to send these funds. These will not be a check. It will be, they're going to put this information in your bank, direct deposit. So you want to give the bank name, account number, and the routing number. Straightforward information. Then I suggest you read this fine print down here. And then you certify that all the information that you have provided is correct, and you click there. Now, the information that's going to be needed for this loan would be a 4506T, which is the request for your transcripts, and your most recent income tax returns, and a schedule of liabilities, which is SBA Form 2202, and personal financial statements, which is SBA Form 413D. Now, if you decide to send this, if you decide not to do this online process and you want to mail it in, you need all of these forms. If you're a sole proprietor, you'll fill out this this Form 5C. If you're any other type of entity, you're going to fill out the Form 5. But whether you have to fill out Form 5 or 5C, you want to send all 4 of these items as well. And then I have a address where you can go find these forms and download them so you can mail them in. And then SBA also has an address if you decide you want to mail the forms in, they have an address for that. Now, what's the difference between this loan and the regular SBA loan? SBA's Economic Injury Disaster Funds come directly from the U.S. Treasury Department. Applicants do not go through a bank to apply for this particular type of loan. Instead, they apply directly to SBA's Disaster Assistance Program, and then they have an email address. I have an address for that. There is no cost to apply. There is no obligation to take this loan offer, and the maximum unsecured loan is $25,000. Applicants can have an existing SBA loan to apply for the EIDL loan. However, they can't consolidate those loans. Now, I want to kind of give you an update on the stimulus package. Basically, you could kind of read some of the items that's listed in the stimulus packet that I believe would benefit the small businesses. The one, I'm just going to point out a couple of them, which would be the fact that they're giving $350 billion. That's can be possibly a forgivable loan. And then I give some criteria based on what I understand, but you want to go read that CARES Act to see what that criteria really is. It was my understanding that if a business has the same amount of payroll for the next 8 weeks that they had prior to the coronavirus being designated as a disaster, that as a pandemic, then they would forgive that portion of the loan. But when I was on a meeting with SBA, they mentioned, just to their knowledge, this information hasn't been rolled out right now in terms of the specifics on how they're going to forgive loans or what part that will play in the loans that SBA that they're providing. But they believe the $10,000 may be the portion that would be forgivable. But you want to read and follow SBA.gov to see if that information is correct. The other thing that I'm going to point out here is the 50% refundable payroll tax credit. I think that's definitely a great incentive for small businesses. And you can read the rest of these on your own. So stay tuned for specifics on the rollout of that CARES Act. Thank you for joining, and we can't wait to see you again for our next video.